Imagine paying 50 grand for a tiny Toyota city car, or a legendary race car engine stuffed into an SUV. Every now and then, car executives completely lose their minds. They ignore the accountants and greenlight projects that absolutely should not exist. Whether it was fueled by corporate ego, a desperate attempt to dodge government regulations, or just pure madness and boredom, here are 10 cars that no one ever expected to be built. Let's start off with a car that leaves everyone asking, who the hell approved this? In the early 2010s, European emission laws were tightening, and Aston Martin, a company famous for gas-guzzling V12 supercars, were at risk of facing massive fines. But instead of buying carbon credits like a normal company, they took a bizarre shortcut. They bought a bunch of Toyota IQs, slapped a Vantage-style grille at the front of it, threw some premium leather cushions in the back, and called it the Aston Martin Signet. It cost 50 grand, and it was fundamentally a slow city car, and it remains one of the rarest and weirdest pieces of Aston Martin history today. Bonus fact, they made a one-off V8 version, which is the one I'm driving right now. As for the regular Signets, they are very rare, but I've managed to see two in my life, and not gonna lie, I lost my shit when I did. Throughout Lexus's entire lifetime, you would always think of the same things: reliable, comfortable cars, driven by sensible doctors, lawyers and taxi drivers. So when Lexus announced it was building a supercar, the motoring world practically laughed. But little did we know, this was no April Fool's joke. Lexus was not messing around. They spent so much time in development that they actually scrapped the original aluminium prototype halfway through to restart it in carbon fiber, losing millions in the process. But when it finally debuted, the LFA shut everyone up. Boasting an F1-inspired V10 engine developed with Yamaha, it became one of the greatest sounding and most revered supercars of all time. Toyota lost money on every car they sold. Volkswagen literally translates to the people's car. But in the early 2000s, VW's brilliant but demanding boss Ferdinand Piëch decided he wanted to build a luxury car that would humiliate Mercedes-Benz. Despite having Audi right around the corner, he gave his engineers an impossible list of demands. The car had to be able to do 300 km per hour all day long in 50 degrees Celsius heat, while keeping the interior cabin at a perfect 22 degrees Celsius. The result was the Phaeton. It featured a massive W12 engine, a ridiculously complex air suspension system, and it shared its DNA with Bentley. The problem? No one wanted to pay almost 100 grand for a car with a VW badge on it. It lost VW billions, but as an engineering achievement, it was legendary. In the 1960s, Henry Ford II, also known as Hank the Deuce, tried to buy a struggling Ferrari. But at the very last second, Enzo Ferrari backed out of the deal, due to the deal meaning that he would lose his team's control, insulting him and insulting Ford's heritage in the process. Enraged, Henry Ford II challenged the entire financial might of America's biggest car company on one single mission: crush Ferrari at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Ford brought Carroll Shelby in and British racer Ken Miles along to build a low-slung V8 powered weapon. It took a few tries, but in 1966, the GT40 took a historic 1-2-3 finish at Le Mans, breaking Ferrari's dominance. It remains one of the ultimate revenge cars in automotive history. If you ever want to see what happens when French designers are left completely unsupervised, look no further than the Renault Aventine. In the early 2000s, Renault looked at the family minivan market and thought, what this segment needs is a grand touring luxury coupe. They built a massive, futuristic MPV, but gave it 2 doors and a pillarless glass roof, and 0 B-pillars, meaning that you could lower all the side windows all at once for the ultimate open-air experience. It was a completely useless minivan and it was too heavy to be a sports car, and unsurprisingly, it bombed hard, but today it is celebrated as a masterpiece of pure architectural madness. In the 2000s, Audi was making a killing in endurance racing. Audi had taken Le Mans by storm with the R8, and then in 2006, the R10 came about. Winning 36 out of 48 races it ever competed in, the 650 horsepower V12 TDI Audi R10 was the first diesel car to win Le Mans, even inspiring rivals Peugeot to race their own diesel efforts at the legendary race. To celebrate, Audi's engineers were looking at their amazing V12 and thought about putting it into a road car. A luxurious A8? A diesel-powered R8 was even considered, and a concept was even made. But what they settled on was the Q7.
What?
The Audi Q7 V12 TDI was born. And even though 18 years have passed since its creation, it is still the only passenger car in history powered by a V12 diesel engine. I wonder why. The 6-litre twin-turbo engine produced 500 horsepower and a gargantuan 1,000 Nm of torque, or 738 pounds-feet of torque. Despite weighing over 2.6 tons, this all-wheel drive mammoth launched from 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds, with a limited top speed of 250 km per hour, or 155 miles an hour if that's how you swing. When asked if Ferrari would ever build an SUV, former CEO of Ferrari Sergio Marchionne responded brutally, "You would have to shoot me first." But by seeing Porsche, Aston Martin and even Lamborghini selling high-rise SUVs of their own, Ferrari eventually caved. Enter the pure sangue, but because they are Ferrari, they refused to build a normal SUV. So instead they gave it rear suicide doors, a front mid-mounted naturally aspirated V12 and some complex active suspension, set up to replace the wonderful GTC4 Lusso. The Pure Sangue is an SUV made for people who don't want to admit that they have an SUV. And despite the high price tag, it's sold out for years to come. As far as SUVs go, it looks pretty good. Sadly, the same cannot be said about the Luce. Go back 20 years and the words Hyundai and high performance belonged in a completely different sentence. Hyundai made sensible, cheap commuter cars with long warranties, but in the mid-2010s, they decided they wanted a piece of that hot hatch action. To ensure that they didn't half-ass it, they poached Albert Biermann, the former engineering boss of BMW's M division. He set to work transforming the sensible i30 into a Golf GTI killer, resulting in the i30N. Snapped, crackled, popped, and it handled beautifully, shocking the entire automotive landscape and completely changing how the world looked at the Korean brand. Building a mid-engine sports car to compete directly with the Porsche Cayman is usually a financial suicide mission. However, when Renault decided to revive a long-dead heritage brand Alpine to do exactly that, everyone thought, well, this is going to be business as usual. Enter the modern A110. And boy, this was a masterclass in minimalism. Instead of chasing massive horsepower, they focused entirely on weight loss, making it incredibly light. It captures the same 1960s inspired retro styling, and many journalists absolutely adored the thing, even though it only had a 1.8-litre turbocharged engine good for 280 horsepower. The car's playful handling made it an absolute dream, making famous automotive names and purists fall in love with its incredible drive. And it had to be said, no one expected this mainstream French brand to actually pull it off. As this gen of A110 comes to a close, an electric powered and an internal combustion powered replacements on the way. And finally, we have the car that changed the luxury automotive landscape forever. For good or for worse. In the late 90s, Porsche were in serious financial trouble. Selling pure sports cars like the 911 wasn't generating enough cash to survive, so they teamed up with Volkswagen to build an SUV that could do it all. Purists were filled with absolute rage, claiming Porsche had sold its soul, which it hadn't yet. But Porsche engineered the Cayenne to handle like a sports car on the tarmac while being highly capable off-road. It wasn't just a massive sales success, it literally saved Porsche from bankruptcy. It funded the development of future 911s, the Cayman, the 918, and even made them come back to endurance racing twice. And it also paved the way for every single luxury brand to create a super SUV of their own today. And so next time you see a luxury crossover SUV that is absolutely expensive and absolutely hideous, you can thank Porsche for it. And so that's my list. So which of these cars were your favorite, and is there any I left out? If so, you should let me know down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, do remember to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon as well to be reminded about future uploads. And finally, I want to thank you all so much for watching. I hope to see you all very soon.